Welcome back to 5-Minute Bible Study. Yesterday we talked about the paralytic man, and so today we are moving on to the section called the calling of Matthew. So he's asking Matthew to be one of his disciples. So I'm going to read that. And then something hit me when I was thinking about it, and I'll tell you after I read it. As Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the tax collector's booth. "Follow me," he told him, and Matthew got up and followed him. While Jesus was having dinner at Matthew's house, many tax collectors and sinners came and ate with him and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with the tax collectors and the sinners?" On hearing this, Jesus said, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. For I have not come to call the righteous, but the sinners." So I started to reflect on this, and I started to make notes. And then all of a sudden it hit me. We just finished listening to his long teaching on the Beatitudes, of him saying, "You've always done this, now I want you to do this." And this story is so shocking, which we'll get into, but it is so shocking that all of a sudden it hit me. He just spent time talking about the Beatitudes, and now I feel like he's moving on to step 2 in the lesson, and he's living it. He's showing it. He's actually saying, "I told you to do this. Watch me how I do it." He isn't judging. He is loving his neighbor. He isn't shunning or condemning or whatever, or giving someone their due punishment. He is loving them. He's doing what he just taught, which I appreciate. I've changed churches in the last couple of years, and something I really appreciate about my current pastor is, if you look at his life behind the scenes, things that nobody sees, you don't actually know unless he mentions them. He's out there loving people, and he has been for 40, whatever, I don't know how old he is, but for 40 years, whatever. He's out there actually doing it. And so I appreciate that Jesus preached a lesson and now he's doing it. And that really hit me. But then what's funny is, first of all, Matthew followed right away. So part of me asked, my goodness, how happy was Matthew that he just willingly got up and followed him? And I like that it says that he saw Matthew and called him. You see us, you call us. And he went to Matthew's home and he invested time and he had a meal, and even Matthew's colleagues came, all these dirty, low-life people, because maybe they were thinking, if Jesus was willing to eat with Matthew, maybe he'll accept us too. And there was no shame. And I thought, how many times had those people been asked to a Pharisee's house? How many times did a Pharisee say, "You know what, come have dinner with me, let's talk about stuff"? Probably never. But Jesus is happily spending time with them. He's not too good. He doesn't have more important things. And I even thought, what did the disciples think about Jesus doing this, about him joining in and them being a part of it and being in a sinner's house? And so the Pharisees saw it, because Jesus wasn't hiding it. And I liked their question to the disciples. They pulled them aside and they say, "Wow, who's your leader? And what kind of plan does this guy have? Like, why is he wasting his time and actually discrediting himself by eating with sinners? You sure you want to follow this guy? He seems a little off his rocker." Sounds like that's what they are saying. And listen to this funny part. Jesus heard them and he stepped in. And I wrote here that I actually really like that. That tells me that Jesus is a gentleman. It just seems so manly and gentlemanly for him to step in. He didn't leave the disciples with the pressures to answer. He heard it. He stepped in, took the pressure off them, and said, "Let me handle this." I like that. And that tells us something about God. And he says, perfectly fine people don't need a doctor. If you think you're all healthy and you think everything's functioning properly, you're not going to go in and see a doctor. The only people that go into the doctor are the ones who feel like something is wrong, feel like something isn't normal, something isn't functioning as it should, and it feels off. So then they go and seek help. But the hardest problem here is that to seek help, you must go. And to go, you must admit or acknowledge that you know something is off. You can't get help and healing unless you acknowledge or admit that something isn't right in you. You are doing something wrong, or there is something wrong, and you need help. And so, but then he says, but forget all of this. Right now, I want mercy. I want to see compassion and forgiveness and kindness. And I want to see you loving others more than sacrifices and rituals and rules. I'm all about losers and rejects and failures as you guys see it. You can't love them and all of their mistakes, but you need to. It's impossible to not love them because they have flaws and they need forgiveness. And he says, I'd rather see you do that than walk around with a rules list and checking who's following and who's not. Which one would you rather do?